Hey guys, so as a big Star Wars fan, I was really saddened to hear that Peter Mayhew, the 7'3" tall actor behind Chewbacca, passed away. I'm always interested in kind of lesser-known actors and their lives and careers, so I just immediately checked out his IMDb page, kind of reminiscing, and I noticed some other projects that he did over the years in which he wasn't Chewbacca. I mean, I guess it makes sense that he wouldn't just stick to one thing as an actor, but I thought this was interesting. You know, so many people have talked about Peter's involvement with Star Wars, but I thought it might be a fun tribute to take a look at all the other stuff he did. And maybe along the way we'll get a fuller picture of exactly who the man was. So if you're curious to watch this stuff like I was, here are Peter Mayhew's non-Chewbacca acting roles.
Beat with the power as only I command.
First up, 1977, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. Peter Mayhew was in his mid-30s and working as an orderly at King's College Hospital in London, England, when he played Minotaur, a gigantic, golden, minotaur-like creature who does the bidding of the villains.
He seems to be rowing for 6 men.
The character is portrayed with a combination of close-up stop-motion animation and far-away live-action shots, where you can briefly see Peter at work. A lot of the time he's just kind of rowing this boat. It may not seem like much, but Minotaur's in most of the movie, until a rock lands on him in the end.
He's done his work.
But hey, it was a job, right? Peter was originally discovered by producers of the film after they saw an article about Peter focusing on men with big feet. The big feet made sense, considering his diagnosis. Peter had Marfan syndrome, and if you've seen our episode on character actor Vincent Schiavelli, who also had Marfan syndrome, you might already know that symptoms include tall stature and long limbs and fingers. Although Marfan syndrome can also cause major heart problems, it was pretty much the reason he played Minotaur. And if he didn't play Minotaur, he would have never played Chewbacca, because according to a quote from Mayhew in the book The Making of Star Wars, one of the makeup men on Sinbad was also creating the Wookiee costume, and he suggested me to the producers of Star Wars. 1978. Terror. Not long after Star Wars swept the Oscars in 1978, there was a reasonably successful B-horror movie released about descendants of a witch-hunting family being stalked and killed by something. Mystery. One of the best elements of a horror movie. And when Susie's car breaks down in the middle of a stormy night, there's an ominous figure lumbering toward her in the rain, circling the house, opening the creaky door.
You want a mechanic?
It's the mechanic she called earlier. So it's a nice fake-out monster gag, and Peter Mayhew, being over 7 feet tall, was a perfect choice. The thing about tall guys is they just seem to be cast as monsters a lot. It kind of makes sense, you know, you want to be tall and foreboding. Just look at our supporting actor spotlights episode on Jaws actor Richard Kiel. He did that stuff all the time.
Come and listen to the call of Dark Towers.
The story so far.
Although it's listed as Dark Towers on IMDb, it's technically part of the children's educational anthology series Look and Read. Each episode would be bookended by a small portion of a story with elements focused on reading.
Go where old wheels went round, Towser. The old coach house.
And a big portion in the middle recapping the story and teaching lessons on spelling and grammar.
Here we are, the apostrophe. Woohoo!
Dark Towers was a ghost story told in 10 parts, and Peter Mayhew, just 1 year after The Empire Strikes Back came out, played the Tall Knight.
I am Lord Edward Dark. I'm not afraid. I need your help.
It says so in the old legend. I cannot help unless the girl and the dog are here.
I'm not sure if that's his voice or not, but again, his height comes in handy. He's big and people are scared of him.
I know you're there, bear. I can smell ya. That bear's mine. Get away from me. I'll kill you too.
1997, Dragon Ball GT: A Hero's Legacy.
I'm glad you've escaped. Now I don't have to share you with anyone.
In what is on record as his only voiceover role in animation, Peter played Susha, an amphibian villain who tries to eat Goku Jr. can't find any other info on this project. All I can say is that he did a good job portraying a menacing character with just his voice. I wonder why he didn't take more voiceover jobs. Maybe just being Chewie, even in the off-season of the Star Wars franchise, was full-time work. 2008. Yesterday was a lie. Star Wars was between sequels, and Mayhew was still touring sci-fi conventions and graciously interacting with fans like he had always done. He was then attracted to this low-budget indie sci-fi neo-noir. Our main character, Hoyle, a female version of the classic hard-drinking investigator type, is on the hunt of a reclusive genius who may be able to distort reality.
So this backdoor research you're doing, how does it fit in?
Meanwhile, she's being stalked by Dead Man, played silently in dark shadows and silhouettes by our boy, Peter Mayhew. He may not have had any lines, but something that he was thankful for was
but to get my face on screen, rather than having a character around, and that I am entirely thankful for.
It's worth mentioning that at this point, Mayhew had been on a difficult personal journey.
When I get up in the morning, I'm holding on to a wall to go to the bathroom.
Over a decade prior, he was beginning to have difficulty walking, according to this interview with his wife, Angie, in the Kickstarter for a documentary about Mayhew's struggle to walk again, Standing in the Stars.
I'm Angie Mayhew, and I expect that our patient here, my husband, Peter Mayhew, doesn't need much of an introduction.
He eventually had knee replacement surgery and was able to at least play Chewbacca some of the time in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
Getting back to the old days, the old ways of doing things, I think it's great.
And although Peter officially retired from Chewbacca after that, serving as a consultant on The Last Jedi, he was apparently still able to walk for at least brief periods of time in Killer Inc., an indie send-up of old Grindhouse movies.
Thanks for the eggs!
He played Uncle Clyde, an eccentric relative of the main character, and had his voice dubbed by another actor.
I haven't been doing much, just working on my ducks.
And that's pretty much it. Obviously, these acting roles don't speak to Peter's real legacy as Chewbacca. It's not like he was just a stand-in, he really created a character. Even when he was sick and couldn't play Chewbacca for some of the time on Empire Strikes Back, replaced by a double, they went back and reshot his scenes because they felt something was missing. The character didn't have his usual movements and reactions, and I'm sure it didn't feel the same to other actors who had to interact with him, especially Harrison Ford.
What's going on?
And even though his classic Chewie noises were dubbed, he would have actual dialogue he'd say underneath the costume, helping other actors react appropriately.
That old man is mad.
You said it, Chewie.
I guess what I wanted to do was give people the opportunity to see Peter as a real human being, with an actual face behind that mask that people rarely saw in film or television. He was a working actor. He showed up, stood on his mark, did his job, and he'll be greatly missed by the Star Wars community. And even though he spent the bulk of his life not being seen or heard, who else can say that they were such an integral part of the Star Wars franchise? And hey, even though Chewie didn't get a medal at that ceremony at the end of A New Hope, he technically had the final line of dialogue.